Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? It's that time of the week where we can take a wee pause for the cause and just kind of see how the dust is settling on everything Celtic, because over the last week or so, it has been an absolute roller coaster from start to finish, and with an international break right around the corner and some maybe big developments you would think in the offing thereafter, you know, what really is the situation we're sitting at the moment in terms of the hunt for the new Celtic manager? In the video today, we'll be chatting mainly about the dynamic of the interim team that we've got at the moment, headed and fronted by Martin O'Neill, but really kind of propped up and made what it's been by Sean Maloney, Mark Fotheringham and Stephen McManus. And I want to try and couple that with everything we've kind of seen, heard and felt over the last couple of days, just in terms of, you know, where Celtic are in the hunt for the next manager. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section in this one and let me know what you think about what we talk about when we get into the video. We've been absolutely smashing it on the channel recently. We've just got a bunch more subscribers, so thanks to everyone that's been tuning into the content and has hit that subscribe button. We're very close to 15,000 subs, but our goal, our target, as you guys all know, is to get to 18,888, and we cannot do that without your support. The likes as well have been absolutely flying, and we're consistently smashing out over 300 likes a video, which is absolutely incredible. So if you do enjoy the content, all the interactions that you give really do go a long way to supporting the channel and helping us grow, which just means we can find more jungle gyms to come and hang out with us. And the bigger the channel gets, the bigger and the better, hopefully, the content we can provide for you guys is. We've got a really packed week and we've got a lot of stuff lined up already for the international break. So tons of topics, tons of analysis to get stuck into. And yeah, I think for this video today, let's just jump into it. Let's get stuck in. Because the main thing I want to look at and talk about today is the squad, right? And, you know, really where we are in terms of IDing a new manager. Because the one thing that's been really clear since Maloney, Fotheringham, McManus and O'Neill have came back into the building is that the team is just been a bit different. You know, tactically, it feels like the square pegs are going into the square holes and the round pegs are going into the round holes, and there's just a little bit more synergy, a little bit more buy-in with the squad very quickly. I was on Axom on Monday and we were chatting even about the potential impact or power on the squad and everything that's kind of going on at the moment, perhaps even of Paul Tisdale. But one thing that it's felt like since, particularly, let's just say Maloney and co have came into the driver's seat for, you know, guys that have been in the background, maybe watching from a distance or whatever, is that they're kind of, you know, playing it by the recipe, you know, in terms of like, how was this squad built, who built it, and what sort of combinations of players did we expect to see and patterns of play to get the most out of everyone. And I think that's a big reason for the joy that we've seen of Kenny and Osmond getting, because you can feel that they're really doing, and again, it's something we've tried to highlight here on the channel, that you can kind of, particularly with Kenny, because he's just had more minutes, but you can really see what they offer as a striker. You can really see what it is they're practicing, what it is they're trying to actually achieve in the match. And, you know, with a striker in particular, it's much easier to kind of see the fruit of that and see people's efforts, because it's about scoring goals and the team should funnel towards them, should play into them. So I think they've been kind of quiet winners of just going back to the recipe that this squad was built with, whereas it's kind of it looks and feels even more so now in the aftermath with Brendan that he wasn't thinking about the ingredients in the recipe at hand. He was just like, this is my recipe, and to do the recipe I need X, Y and Z. And then when he's given A, B and C rather than X, Y and Z, he's like, okay, well, I can't make spaghetti like this, but anyway, the food analogies maybe went bad now. But the reason I find that really interesting, or a point of discussion, I think, when it comes to the managerial selection is, ideally we will be getting a manager that can play with the players that we have already. You know, they can come in, they can hit the ground running, they can really just pick up from where this interim period has been here and carry on with the good work, as it were. Now, I'll link it at the end of this video, but we did a video a few weeks ago, I think maybe even in the last international break, talking about how this January window is the biggest January window, the biggest window probably ever for Celtic in the modern era. I'll link that at the end of this one in case you missed it, and in the coming international break we'll probably do a bit of an update, a bit of a refresher for it. But a great topic, and you know, just a lot of good stuff to get stuck into with that one. And that is something that I do want to kind of accent to flavour this, because you know, January there will be business, there's no two ways about it. I think everyone expects Daizen Maeda to probably be cashed in on, you know, to be sold. It does really feel now, especially with Bernardo not making any squads since Martin O'Neill and co have come back in, that probably his days are numbered in a Celtic shirt and we won't be seeing him any longer. And you might even start to think the same about Shin, because with all these opportunities coming into the squad for Osmond and Kenny and co, for Shin not even to be getting a sniff of the squad, etc., Just feels a little bit weird. We've seen Jan come into the semi-final squad. Maybe we'll see him in the Europa League this week. It's hard to say, but it does feel again like his days might be numbered in a Celtic shirt. And, you know, whether it's loans or selling or whatever, those guys are going to bring in a couple of quid at the very least. We're already £15 million to the good in this January window. So, you know, like, again, a lot could happen. You've got to think that there's a lot of consideration for the new manager picking up with the current squad and being able to fully utilise any transfers that do happen in January, unlike the previous manager, Brendan Rodgers. And I think what we've seen from, like, so when all this happened, when Brendan Rodgers leaves, I'm very much, and I still am, in the camp and the mindset of we should be getting the best possible manager available, whether they're in a job or not. We want a guy that's got experience of winning titles. We want a guy that's got experience of taking a team like Celtic into Europe. Maybe they don't, you know, like we used some good examples. Again, I'll link that video at the end of this one when we did the full stream looking at all the possible candidates, likely and unlikely, and maybe soon to be linked and all the rest of it. And some of them maybe have went quite far in the Champions League with lesser fancied teams, teams on smaller budgets, teams outside the top 5 leagues. And, you know, you can't always get the perfect candidate. You can't always, you know, it's just life, isn't it? Maybe somebody isn't interested in the job. Maybe we don't quite have the budget for it, whatever it might be. But you're after somebody to tick at least as many of those boxes as possibly can. And it's really for that reason I've not been in the Maloney camp. And I've been very much in the mindset of a lot of you guys on the channel where when this writing was on the wall, a lot of you guys were saying, oh, Maloney will come in as interim and this and that will happen. And, you know, obviously it has. Maloney again said on the unveiling press conference that he plans on going back to pathway manager is his kind of job. And, you know, let's see who the new manager is and if they bring anyone with them, because that probably still will happen. But again, part of where we're at right now, and I'm hearing more and more people say, give Martin O'Neill, give Sean Maloney, give them the interim gig longer than just the immediate term. And that's kind of why I want to kind of set the table with some of these points already, because like I can kind like Sean Maloney for me, like when I was growing up, Sean Maloney was like the guy breaking into the team, the guy from the academy, you know, like it was just like the poster child of Celtic. He really was. And fair enough, the squad he was in had like some icons in it, of course, but I really do mean that. Like being at school and just, like Sean Maloney was the guy everyone really identified with in so many ways, boys and girls, I might say. It might be hard to imagine that, seeing Sean Maloney today, but when I was growing up, it was certainly universally loved by boys and girls everywhere, it must be said. And there's no two ways about it that he is a Celtic guy, and I think we've been able to see in this interim period that he's a very capable Celtic first-team coach. He's a very capable Celtic, you know, first-team coach is probably the only way of putting it. And it does open up the thought in my head to not necessarily continuing with O'Neill as the figurehead, because just as he said to himself, like probably his heart can't take it for too much longer. Could you give him the swan song of a season? I think that's really generous. I think Martin O'Neill as himself, you kind of see that cup final as being like the kind of capstone, as I heard it mentioned on Trinity Tim's, to like his little kind of encore that he's kind of had with us over the last little while. And I was like the first person into the Martin O'Neill interim bandwagon as soon as the statement came out, but it's very much an immediate term solution for me. But with Sean Maloney, like I'm very conflicted, right, because he really has the DNA, he really has the fabric of everything that we really should gravitate and want to work for a Celtic manager, but he does have, like, for where the squad is at, for where we're at, money in the bank, transfer spend to come, etc. Like, we really are in a position now where we want someone at the helm that knows what they're doing explicitly, and we're not really going on a flyer, we're not taking a chance with somebody. And again, that's kind of where I stop with it. But it's kind of hard to ignore how well he is doing in the first team coach position. Now, when he got the pathway manager job, I was really much more, and I still am, of the opinion that if you're going to give somebody that job, they need to do it for 3 to 5 years to really see any fruit come from it. I understand he's put a lot of systems and protocols in place, which is lovely. But whether it be Maloney, even as an interim until the end of the season, is maybe something that could be discussed, or whether it is what we keep hearing. I heard Neil Lennon on the Premier Sports podcast that Darryl Curry hosts with Michael Stewart and Alan Hutton, and he's kind of parroting and echoing everything that we've heard from Martin O'Neill already in terms of the club will be looking for a young manager, an ambitious person with a really strong CV, and, you know, all the links we've had so far have been to Kieran McKenna. We even had links to Lee Carsley, who maybe isn't quite in that young category, but very much is in that ambitious, kind of hyperactive coach category, maybe again kind of similar to Maloney. And it feels like if that is the path that the club are certainly going down, then that tick list of nice to haves, wants or needs that we have for a Celtic manager, guys that have got a few medals around their neck already, know what it's like to go away in the Champions League or do qualifiers or play Europa League football, anything like that at all, kind of dwindles, and we're more and more likely looking at taking a flyer on someone, going out for someone who is going to optimise, manage, coach, enhance the players that we're going to be signing and bringing in. Now, as you'll see when you look at the Celtic next manager kind of video that we've got here on the channel, Kieran McKenna, right from the off, was very high on my, candidate list, on my short list, and he certainly remains there. But outside of him, I'm not really too sure there's that many options around UK football, probably, that I think I would be going after. European football is a bit different, and again, if you think about my number 3 candidate, would very much come into that category, but again, really does have a lot missing off the wish list, off the want list, of the profile, of the experience that the manager has coming into it. And I look at the squad the way it's sitting right now. We're not going to have Vickers for the remainder of the year. Jota should be coming back from his injury sometime soon. He's certainly in and around the building, as we know. And between Alistair Johnson and Iheanacho, they're going to be featuring in the squad, you've got to think, between now and certainly the end of the January transfer window. So the squad is good. The squad is strong enough for at least where we're at domestically. And Europa League, I think we're all kind of semi-checked out of right now. Let's see how we do at the end of 8 games. That might change our opinion on it. Of course, if we're going to go far, we get a favourable draw, etc. But yeah, for this squad that we have, we're thinking about Trusty. We're hearing Murray's name come back into the frame from Martin O'Neill's mouth as well, that he's very highly rated behind closed doors within the club. There's not really too many emergency situations here where you would need a manager to come in and really redevelop the defence or reimagine the attack. And yeah, we need strengthening, we need upgrades. There's no two ways about that. But if we're after a coach, I say this is more of a conversation kind of video rather than me saying this is the way things should go or this is something I've seen. But I'm starting to get conflicted now into, if we don't get Kieran McKenna, I don't want somebody like Lee Carsley coming in, and even some of the other guys that have been mentioned from the English Championship, etc. I'm not really big on that type of category. And if that is really firmly the market that we're shopping in, we're not going to go into the continent, we're not going to go into the wilderness to pluck another Ange from obscurity and try and give that sort of person a shot. Is the incumbent interim team at the moment the best, I don't want to say valid, but the one that is even just on the table? Is that the best immediate term? And when I say immediate term now, in this case, I'm thinking about the remainder of the season, of course. Is that the best way to go? Just give a bit of solidarity to the team. Again, I kind of referenced it earlier, I can kind of bring it back now. You let Paul Tisdale go into the transfer market, you allow Sean Maloney, McManus and Fotheringham to, again, just put the ingredients of the recipe together, and maybe we get through the season with this situation. Then you can revisit some things in the summer with a pre-season, Champions League qualification guaranteed, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe open some doors to some of these other candidates that are maybe it's not the right time for. But again, I will caveat that by saying I think there's plenty of good candidates out there. And even the fact that we're willing to go after Kieran McKenna, who's in a job, tells me that Celtic don't care if they're in a job. They're IDing candidates and they're approaching them. They're not waiting for the free agent market or someone to leave a big job or anything like that this time, which is good and ambitious, and we want that to continue happening. But as I say, in the failing of that, if we don't go into the Marco Rosa category, if we don't go into the continent to really get someone that's earned their stripes a little bit more, would we maybe just be better hanging in there with the O'Neill regime? I'm not sure Martin O'Neill himself personally would be involved the entire year to the same extent. It's hard to imagine he would walk away from the infrastructure. They've got a good thing going. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I keep doing this today. I'm really sorry, everyone. But there you go. It's just been one of those days. But yeah, I'm just listening, feeling, and kind of observing everything right now. And I'm just a bit conflicted with where the club are at in the search for a new manager, trying to understand, because again, the links and everything that we're getting coming out is very kind of middle of the food chain. We're not going after any of the top candidates available. We don't really seem to be linked to anyone that is aspirational in that regard. It really would be a continuation of, if you got to think, the last 3 managers we've had is Brendan, Ange, Brendan. We want to keep that kind of trajectory going of top guys that can operate at the top level of the game. And you can talk about Ange and Brendan in different ways, positively and negatively, of course. I think their impact on the team in different ways, especially initially on arrival, when that new voice, that new energy comes into the building. Callum McGregor referenced it in his press conference that Brendan really changed a lot of the landscape of just like the foundations of the club. And obviously we all know what Ange did transfer market wise, as well as on the pitch, different change of tactics, etc. And if we need another bit of that, we need to go and get another top candidate that brings that new bit of infusion. And that's why some of these more exotic candidates I'm very excited by, because I think at this point in the game, we want a bit of Bruges, we want a bit of Salzburg, we want a bit of Ajax in the building. Somebody that has lived the life that we are aspiring to live ourselves, and bring them inside. What's missing, what works, and obviously manage the team, deal with some transfers for us. But while you're here, what else could be upgraded and improved upon? So I'm not going to hold out, I'm not going to change my position that that's still the trajectory I want us to go in. But I'm just kind of reading the writing on the wall, seeing who's linked and feeling and looking at the squad. Like, if we are just going to be painting by numbers and building a squad like this for someone else to coach and to manage and to put the ingredients of the recipe together to get that young, ambitious manager. And again, Maloney doesn't have the strong CV that everyone's referencing. Is one of our own maybe the best way to go in some ways, perhaps? And it's not the best way, but I mean, like, if the board aren't actually approaching some of the candidates that we would want them to. I don't want to throw out the examples there of when this has worked for like Barcelona and Real Madrid and a few other teams, for example, but it's been seen across European and world football time and time again that some people just, in certain clubs, like a club like Celtic, they are part of the fabric, part of the DNA. They just work, they just get a lot more out of them. I was actually a big believer in Neil Lennon first time around, certainly, that was a big factor for him, and maybe it goes away to saying why he's not reached the same heights in his managerial career outside of Celtic. But because he is like Celtic through and through, and again, we don't need to go into current day Neil Lennon and too much, but I think he's get what I'm driving at. You just get more out of them, they get better results, and they just get it. They know what it takes to come into the building and make it work, and that is also a big part of the unknown element of football, is getting the sense of this guy can do it or not. I'm really excited and interested to see what your comments are on all of this. Like, if the board aren't going to go out and get a best in class, a top of the food chain level candidate that could infuse some new culture and some new methods into the team, or really just enhance the trajectory we've been going on, where we want to be a Champions League team and we are best in class and we're world class basics and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to go for the coach, the up and coming coach. Yeah. Like, what if we're doing this? Are Maloney, Fotheringham, McManus and co shown enough that they should be viable candidates? Is probably the best way for me to put a bow on this. On screen are now some other videos that we've made. I referenced them earlier. In case you missed them, you want to check them out. YouTube thinks you might enjoy them, I'm sure. Be sure to leave a comment. Really excited to see comments on this one. We'll pick back up on them in the international break. Hit like, subscribe, share, retweet, all that good stuff if you enjoyed the video, of course. Hail, hail, and Moan the Hoops.